So this is White One Auto checking in again. What we have here is a 1989 Chevrolet Caprice, and like a lot of 80s cars with tilt steering, the steering column has came loose. So what we're going to attempt to do today is remove this steering wheel, access the bolts that bolt the upper and lower part of the steering column together, and tighten them up. Hopefully everything's still in here. So let's get started. Steering wheel puller, find the right bolts, put them in so we can pull this steering wheel off. I don't like using an impact on there, so that's why I want to go grab this. And she's off. So there's our wire for our horn contact button. So this here is probably the trickiest part in this whole little deal. So where you have to press this down to get the snap ring out so you can pull the plate off. They make a narrower one as well. I like using this one. Gives me a little bit more room to get in there with the picks to pop these snap ring up. So that's why I use the wider one. Take our wrench, tighten this nut down, and it compresses the spring that's in here so we can get access to our snap ring and pop this thing off. So then the plate will come off. Our snap ring is up out of the groove. Now we will loosen the nut to decompress the spring. This is our little snap ring here. So you want to try not to deform this too much while you're prying it off, because you need to use it again to re-secure the locking plate here. This is our horn contact button. This metal ring here is what contacts the horn so you can energize it so it works. So we'll pull our hazard light switch out, or button, should I say, excuse me. This is our turn signal stalk lever. Now I'm going to pull our ignition switch out. I have to go grab our key to do that. And these bolts right here hold the turn signal switch. I had to actually get the right size screwdriver. So I think I should be able to lift this up enough. Wait, I gotta go underneath the column right quick. I forgot I still got the switch connected. So I'm gonna go underneath here and disconnect this switch, the wires that run through the steering column, so I can pull it up. This here is our key buzzer switch. This is what makes a contact to give you the buzzing sound when the key is in and ignition not on. No, that's the wrong one. I'm trying to. So now we can pull our ignition switch out. We have to remove a small torque fed bolt there. This is what that bolt looks like. This is what holds your ignition cylinder in. And you turn it forward and it'll come out. So I reached in here with a pair of needle nose pliers to turn the key rack back off because I just don't want it on. So now if memory serves me correct, I think I can do this without pulling the turn signal switch all the way out. Yeah. So this is the button right here that interlocks with our lock plate. So you see these holes in the lock plate right here? When the key is back off, when it hits to one of these holes, it'll lock it in place so the steering column locks. So when the key is turned forward, it will allow it to turn. Right, without pulling the turn signal switch out, because I don't want to pull all this bottom trim off because this EQ thing is mounted here. And I like bothering things that people have installed in their car, especially when they're not installed nicely in the brittle 30-year-old plastic. I like to try to leave them alone because if that stuff breaks, I don't want to be responsible for it. So we're gonna pull these. There's 1, 2, 3 bolts out. Lift this out, lift it up, and try to access those bolts to tighten this thing up. Man, I do not want to pull this switch out. I don't think I'm going to be able to get access to it. This is what acts on a rod over here for your high beams. They are. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the camera off the tripod so I can kind of show you exactly what these bolts are. Hey, so this is the bolt I'm talking about. This is one of the bolts here at Inverted Torques, and the other one is down there. If you use your tilt steering column lever, if you reinstall that after you get this upper bowl off or upper cover off, it'll allow you to access to move the steering column up or down. And then you can pull these bolts out one at a time. Make sure you have a magnet ready. After you get it loose, take them out one at a time. So what I do is I'll go and tighten this bolt and then tighten that bolt to get everything back snug. And then with this bolt still tight, I will pull this bolt back out, clean it off, put some Loctite on it, then tighten it back down. Then once this one's back in, I'll go and pull this one out, clean it off, put some Loctite on it, and stick it back down. The reason I do that is because I just don't want this column flopping around free. So that is the way I do it, and it's always worked for me. So that's the best thing I could tell you. So these are in here tight. We have some Loctite on them, and that'll work. So I'm gonna take a break to get the camera set up back on the tripod, and then we'll continue reassembling. So this is what that bolt looks like. So we got this thing out. We will throw some Loctite on it and then tighten it back in. And then, as I said before, then we'll pull the other bolt out, wipe it off, put some Loctite on it, and then tighten it back down. So that is the way I do it, and that's the best way I can explain it to you. Yeah, and this is just another thing I thought I'd point out. So this is your lock cylinder. So you see how that has that groove in there? Your lock cylinder interacts with this right here. This is connected to a long rod, like a rack and pinion, that rides down the length of the steering column. And when you turn this is what starts your car up. Like we can turn the car on right now. Like, so you see the car is running, and then you turn it back, and it's off. So that rack that I'm talking about is down here, that runs down the length of the steering column to a rod that activates your ignition switch. So this is your ignition lock cylinder, to be technically correct. Your ignition switch is way down here in the column, and this rack right here is connected to a rod, and that's what moves the positions in your ignition switch. And there's a little gear on here that activates this rack right here. So that's just a little bit of information if someone didn't know that. So like I say, so we're gonna get this thing back. So I'm gonna get the camera back on the tripod, and we'll put this thing back together. So we're about to put the steering column back together. So now, remember, we did not remove our turn signal switch. It's still in here, but we did disconnect it and we pulled it up some. So to get this upper bowl back on and to get all this, you need to take your tilt lever, pull the steering column down, and then this will give you enough clearance to where you can get that path. Now, you have to slide this on, line up for your lock ring. And then there is this component right here, which will activate your high beams. So you have to get this back inside. There's a little rod here. And so now you have to remove your tilt lever again. Then there's this cover. So this cover slides on the side. It's kind of like a real delicate balance here, because you got to get enough room to pull this forward some. tilt. So all that's hooked up. Where's our tilt lever? So we take our tilt lever, screw it back in. So now we'll get our screws that bolt the upper bowl. That's what I call it. I believe that's the name for it. Oh wait, let me go grab some blue Loctite. So I prefer to put some blue on there because it'll break away free. Good. Or you can use the orange too, which holds real. Newer out to the market is they have this orange Loctite, which is supposed to hold like red, but I think remove with the easy strength of blue. So I'm gonna use some blue Loctite. That's normally what I would use. I think for me, the orange stuff is newer. I just found out about it not too long ago. So I use that on like camshaft retainer bolts. So the cam bolts, I use that on there. The orange, I used to use the blue on there, but now I use the orange since they have it. So we get them started by hand and run them down with our impact. So next, we need to put our key buzzer back in here. I think that's what we're gonna put in next. Is our key buzzer. Should put our ignition in first and then the key buzzer. I would put the ignition in first. So maybe it is the key buzzer. So we need to get our screw for our key buzzer, which is this screw. I mean, our screw for our ignition lock cylinder, which is this screw. It's a Torx head screw, and it's got screw threads at the very top near the head, and the shank is smooth. tighten down this screw here. So that's our key buzzer in. So next we have our ignition switch. So we got our 3 Phillips screws that hold down our ignition switch. You guys may have noticed that while this car is being turned on and off, the gauges aren't lighting up because we're going to run a Dakota Digital in here. So we're changing this. Let me go grab the phone. So now next, we need to get our lever that the turn signal actually uses to activate the turn signal switch. That's that. The screw that holds the turn signal lever is like a flat flange head Phillips screw. So get that on there. So like I was saying, so this car is getting a Dakota Digital dash, which we are a dealer for. So we're gonna put a HDX in this car. So next we'll put on our hazard switch again. That's working. So this is our horn button. So this ring here makes contact with this button here. And there's a cutout, a special place on the locking plate where that goes through, where your wire that attaches to your actual horn button on the horn pad would go. So then we get our snap ring. Put your snap ring on first. We'll get our tool back here to depress the locking plate. Remember that locking plate is key to go a specific way. So as long as you got that started correctly, you will be fine. We'll take our wrench and start tightening it down. Now we'll take our picks and push our snap ring down. Get our snap ring seated in the groove. Loosen back up our spring compressor. Next, we will put our steering wheel back on. Now remember, there is, that's what I was trying to stop from happening. There is a small little arrow line that lines up with the line on the shaft for the steering column. You want both of those to mate up so you know your steering wheel is going back on straight. So both of those made up, so I know our steering wheel is straight. So now, a lot of times there is a snap ring on here that goes on top of this nut that covers it. This car did not have one, so there's not one to put back on. So we connect our switch back to our horn pad here. So we're all finished with our steering column tightening up on our 1989 Caprice. I put the fuse back in so you can see we got our dome lights working. Our key buzzer is working. I hope you guys can hear the key buzzer on the video. And the steering wheel is nice and tight now. No more loose steering column. So that is how you do that. So a quick overview. You have to pull the steering wheel off. There's a lock plate underneath there. You disconnect your turn signal switch, pull it up a little bit, then remove the bolts for your upper bowl, your upper part of your steering column. Pull your ignition switch out, pull your tilt lever, this cover back here for your washer switch. And then there's those 2 bolts down here. So remember, like I say, how I like to do it is I tighten up both of those 2 bolts, and then I pull them out one at a time, put some Loctite on them, and then tighten them back up. And then just reinstall everything. So thank you for checking in. Remember to comment, like, and subscribe. White One Auto. Thank you.